Ooh, welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for my first big draft drop. So I will do a 1.0, a 2.0, and a 3.0, but this is going to be my 0.0. No trading. We're looking at what I think could happen. This is one possible path. And last year, the first mock draft that I dropped, plenty of things, not plenty, I got several things correct on my first drop. So that is that. I was planning on maybe waiting a little bit longer for this, but I prepared it last week, and then yesterday I came to a realization that I had to make a couple of updates right up at the top of the draft. I did that, and then that, of course, changed the whole thing, and then some of those things, now it's starting to look like my takes are starting to become maybe consensus takes sooner than later. So I wanted to get out some of my own opinions, some of my unique takes before they are not unique anymore. And we're going to start this draft in a very ununique way, because I don't know how many times we're going to start the draft this way this year. It might be a lot of times, it might be never again. But I just want to get the most basic, the most easy outcome out of the way to begin the draft for two teams that I think are very, very likely to be taking a quarterback. And I am going to start out with a bit of a consensus take at the top. However, I do want to point out that I am not 100% sure yet between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I actually kind of like Shedeur better in some ways than Cam Ward, in terms of, I guess it depends exactly what I want for my organization and where I'm at, and what I want to get out of my quarterback in the short term or long term is definitely a part of that equation that I think that these teams will be having to weigh themselves. So we're going to start off with Cam Ward. That's kind of the consensus right now at the top of the draft / the higher ranked one, rated one. And then we're going to follow that up with, of course, Shedeur Sanders. So Cam Ward, kind of your toolsy prospect. Shedeur Sanders, a little less toolsy, but highly accurate. My biggest concern for Shedeur Sanders is just the Caleb Williams of it all. The amount of time it takes for him to get rid of the ball. It's a big concern for me. So that's going to bring us on to the New York Giants, and we are going to go with Travis Hunter here. Nothing too unique, but the Giants, they could use cornerback, they could use wide receiver help as well too yet. So, hey, Travis Hunter, in one way or another, should be a can't-miss prospect for them, but I do kind of anticipate it to be cornerback, that he'll be playing at the most. I think that's what teams will want. If I'm Travis Hunter, I kind of want wide receiver, because wide receivers get paid more for my second contract. But we'll see where things go with that kind of conversation. We just don't have any access to that kind of information at this point that I'm aware of. It's going to bring us on to the New England Patriots here at pick 4. Going to go Teteroa McMillan. Could go Abdul Carter for sure. Would make enough sense. I do have wide receiver as a bigger need along with offensive line, but too early for offensive line in this draft. Teteroa McMillan is a game changer as a wide receiver potentially. And I really think that he fits nicely with what New England already has. You can keep Demario Douglas where he's at. I think that this puts Jalen Polk, a guy who I was not as high on the draft as where he got drafted. I thought he was more of just a later day 2 kind of guy, third rounder. I think that puts him in a better position to succeed, and you can get something out of that pick then, hopefully, going down. I just think that it helps to settle everything into place. Of course, with the ultimate goal here of helping Drake May to succeed, and I think that this goes a long ways towards that. Then we've got Jacksonville up on the board. Once again, I mean, we could go Abdul Carter, but a bigger need for us is going to be Mason Graham. I also think a stud. I like Abdul Carter a lot, don't get me wrong. This might be the lowest that Abdul Carter goes in my mock drafts all offseason. That's quite possible, but we're not there yet. With Las Vegas, I mean, look, Max Crosby, Abdul Carter, obviously, absolutely devastating. Would not blame them for going that route. Could very well go that route. But this offense needs more weapons, and if we're not getting a quarterback in there, let's make life as easy as possible on our quarterback. It's the rise of the running backs, right? I do think running back value is a little bit on the rise, and Ashton Genty's just an absolute stud and belongs to be ranked, this high up in terms of the overall rankings. He is one of the best players in this draft. Really no doubt about it. So Ashton Genty, we're going to go to Las Vegas there. One of those unique things that could happen. I'm not going to mock it too often because it's definitely not the most likely thing to happen, I don't believe. But maybe later on it is likely, because maybe we'll get some sort of news leak or whatnot that'll lead us to believe that. But for now, just an opinion that I wanted to get out there in this version of this mock draft, and that's going to bring us to the New York Jets. So if this is how the board drops for the second year in a row, I have them absolutely running up to the board. Last year, I had them running up, I believe it was for offensive tackle. It was Joe Alt that I had dropping in the first version, and I said they're going to run up to the board if it's Joe Alt. This year, we're going to have them run up to the board for Abdul Carter, or up to the board, to the mic, to the stand, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying. They're going to run up and put Abdul up on their board as quickly as possible in this scenario. That's going to bring us on to the Carolina Panthers, who have quite a few needs on defense, especially. Offense, I want to improve that too, but given how this draft has fallen and given our bigger needs on defense, I do think we need to address this defense. We're hopefully in a place where Bryce Young is going to feel kind of comfortable. We'll still get him some more help in the offseason at some point, maybe in free agency. We've already done that. Whatever the case may be, Tyrell McMillan's not here. It's too early for the other wide receivers anyways. We are going to go, oh, that's right. It's been raised up on the board here. James Pierce, really, really good edge rusher, can bring the heat. A little bit of a question as to his 3-down durability. They had quite they were cycling through a lot of guys on that defensive line in Tennessee. Overall, I'm not too concerned about the questions. I think that James Pierce should be fine, and for sure can be an impact maker every time that he is on the field. So bring us on to New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to have to go down on the board here for Trevor, somebody who some people really like, other people really do not like, and Princely Uman Mielen, who is somebody who I still need to see some more recent tape on him, so I'm not completely done with my evaluation on him. There are some things that I really, really like about him, and to me, he looks the part. So in this case, I ended up going with Princely Uman Mielen because I do believe Will Johnson, a little bit too early for him, for my flavors, for my tastes in this draft. Same with some of the other guys who you might be thinking that they could be interested in. And as far as edge rusher, he's next man up on my list, and I think really fits part of the profile, too, that they tend to look for anyways in New Orleans, although new group there, so, that's probably not true anymore. But regardless, I think edge rusher, a need for them, and so Princely comes in and will help them there. So bring Chicago up onto the podium next, and is that the word I was looking for before when I said stand? Podium? It is, but that's going to bring us here. We are going to grab Will Campbell, and we're just going to figure this out. Whether Will Campbell's a tackle, a guard, a center is a possibility. That I want to say maybe Trevor brought up the possibility of Will Campbell being the center for Chicago because of his leadership qualities, and really being able to, Trevor Sigma, by the way, the creator of PFF's big board here, really would be able to captain this offensive line, and I think ultimately take a lot off of the plate of your young quarterback, Caleb Williams, that you are trying to develop. Plus, you think of who is the head coach there now, where he comes from, Detroit, Ben Johnson, coming from Detroit. They developed that offensive line first and foremost before they went out and filled everything else up. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and do that again. Once again, Will Campbell. We're just going to get our 5 best offensive linemen on the field and help protect our quarterback because he needs to feel comfortable. That's, I think, evident. Let's bring us on to San Francisco. We tried giving them some more help last year along this offensive line. They ended up picking up Dominic Puni, my personal favorite offensive lineman. Doesn't mean I had him ranked number 1 favorite offensive lineman from last offseason. Absolutely killed it. But you know what? It's not enough. They still are losing more people, have lost some people, will be losing more in the future, and they just still need help along that offensive line. And I think that Kelvin Banks Jr. actually really fits into the mold of what they like in their offensive linemen. So that is what we're going to do. So a little quick recap here on the top 11. We've got Cam Ward going to Tennessee Titans, followed by Shedeur Sanders to Cleveland, Travis Hunter to the New York Giants, Teteroa McMillan to the New England, Jacksonville Jaguars picking up Max Mason Graham, Ashton Genty to Las Vegas, Abdul Carter to the Jets, James Pierce Jr. to the Carolina Panthers, Princely Umanamialan to Saints, Will Campbell, and then Kelvin Banks going to the Chicago Bears and San Francisco 49ers in that order. Now, down in the description, I should leave a couple of details in terms of if you want to follow me on any kind of socials. I do have a social that every now and then I might post to, and this board will be going up on my website, www.theffforge.com, this draft, where I will describe in more detail on there exactly why I made some of these picks, or maybe for different reasons I'll be describing than what I'm talking about in this video. Some of them might be the same exact reasons that I talked about in the video are also written down there. But please do go check that out if you want a closer look at it. And also, you should be able to get on the Discord. There should be a Discord link down in the description. If not, let me know. It's not supposed to be password protected. I used to have I attempted to password protect at one point, but it's not supposed to be. And there, as the off season goes along, I don't have everything up there yet. I want to get a little bit further along in my evaluations. I will be putting up my evaluations. You'll be able to get hundreds of reports of strengths, weaknesses, notes on players, on hundreds of players, I should say, as well as my big board and all of that good stuff that comes along with this time of the year. And that'll just be available to you if you want on the Discord. So that out of the way, let's move on to pick number 12 here with the Dallas Cowboys. Plenty of needs here. Malachi Starks, I think, could definitely fit some of what we've seen from them drafting in recent years. Now we've got a different defensive coordinator in there and everything. It's a new regime there, so maybe they don't actually value Malachi Starks incredibly highly, and he's also someone who I think might fall in the draft. What they do clearly need is some help along that defensive front. You can run up and down against these Dallas Cowboys all day long, and they have no answers. And you know who's really good at this and who just shined today in the day one of the Senior Bowl? Somebody who I've had up here is Walter Nolan. Somebody who I'm really shocked isn't always in the top 15, or I should say at least like always in the top like 20. To me, he feels like a slam dunk, top 20 kind of guy in this draft. I really like Walter Nolan. He's showing out. He's going to be somebody who can come in here, help us stuff the run, and he also brings some decent pass rushing upside that could really, really help bring some juice along this defensive line as well. And that's going to bring us on to Miami. And I believe as time goes on, especially as Walter Nolan, I think he's going to age like a fine wine. The kid's like 20 years old, okay? He's still extremely young, and I believe he's going to play the NFL season at 20 years old. Very young, lots of room to grow, and he's already, you know, one of the best defensive linemen in a really, really stacked defensive line class. That's going to bring us on to the Miami Dolphins. Now, I know I just said that I think that this guy could fall, and he definitely could, and that's part of the reason why we're going to get this over with in this draft. Malachi Starks to Miami. It makes a lot of sense. Go read the mock draft if you want to know exactly why. I believe that makes a lot of sense, but I'm not the first one to do this. We're not going to beat a dead horse with it. I know if you've been watching a lot of these videos, you've seen Malachi Starks go to the Miami Dolphins, and you have seen the explanations as to why that this makes a lot of sense for them. But also, they just need safeties. They don't have any safeties in terms of currently. Free agency can change that, but that is the current status of their roster. It's going to bring on the Indianapolis Colts. Something else to remember with this free agency hasn't happened. If a guy is a free agent, even though he was on your team last year, I'm not counting him as on your team. So don't go saying, we have that player, we don't need that position, because we have so-and-so, or we're going to resign so-and-so. If you haven't re-signed them yet, then they're not on your team. So until they're on your team, I'm not going to count anybody as being on your team. So just a heads up on that. But that's going to bring us on to the Indianapolis Colts. And I get some people's argument against Tyler Warren to the Colts. It just kind of seems like they're probably going to take Tyler Warren. And I do have some counter arguments to that, just in terms of, even if it's not the most per down usage on an efficiency basis, I think that Tyler Warren would be really, really important to bring in here. And once again, too, you need to help these people that you've invested in, speaking of quarterback Anthony Richardson, to succeed. In order to help him to succeed, one area that we can really bring somebody in here is going to be Tyler Warren. Give him maybe, hopefully, a target that's a little bit easier for him to get the ball to at times, instead of taking all these wild shots down the field. To help him get settled in, build up some accuracy too, and give him a big target to get the ball to as well. That's going to bring us on to my 15th pick here for the Atlanta Falcons, and that is going to be, surprise here, surprise here, Jahdae Barron. So last year, this time of the year, I fell in love with very quickly a certain cornerback, and he very quickly became my cornerback. Did I say quarterback? I meant cornerback. Number 1 of the draft. And if you're not familiar with my stuff from last year, that was Quinyon Mitchell. I was, I believe, pretty much the first on top of him in terms of being like the CB1, a shutdown type of corner, to the level where he was at least going to be taken in the first round. And to me, Jahdae Barron, early returns, fitting some of that mold, maybe not to the same extreme, different type of player as well, but I really like a lot about him compared to some of these other cornerbacks that are ranked ahead of him on some people's boards. So, Atlanta would love to go edge rusher for them. Would love to go a lot of directions for Atlanta. But defense mostly, and to me, this was kind of best man available here. Tough to say. Mike Green would also be a wonderful fit in Atlanta. I do believe I had them taking Mike Green at one point, one version of this mock draft, but we'll see that, I'm sure, in some future drafts. That's going to bring us on to the Arizona Cardinals, so I am going to end up taking Will Johnson here. I'm a little wishy-washy on Will Johnson. I'm not as high up on him as, for instance, Trevor Sikkema is, and from what I hear as of late, there is a varying opinion on Will Johnson in the NFL circles. So I'm glad to hear it verified. I've been feeling a little bit crazy with not being like, oh, he's a for sure top 5 kind of pick here at cornerback. It seems like others feel the same way about him, so here we have him dropping. Obviously, there will be some that also like him, so we're going to pretend that Arizona is one of the teams that really like him, and they probably feel like they got a steal with him falling to them at 16. Not even the CB1 off the board. Maybe there's CB1 on their board. Going to bring us on to Cincinnati. I mean, maybe not, of course. We don't know. But for Cincinnati, I was just talking about this man, and that's going to be Mike Green, and I have to describe this one. So, a little bit, maybe. Maybe I don't for you, I don't know, but they do have Sam Hubbard, who they've given a pretty hefty contract to in the past, but they have a lot of moves in this offseason with free agency that may or may not be made that will really, really heavily impact where they're going to end up going in this draft. You can see, they have a wide receiver need here, and you might say, well, they have T. Higgins and blah, blah. Well, technically they don't have T. Higgins right now. So this is one case where I am kind of operating under an assumption here. The assumption is that, okay, not only do we need help at our edge room anyways, because the guys that we paid, well, some of them aren't performing, or drafted in recently, aren't performing up to the standards that we need them to perform up to. And if you want to get room to sign some guys like maybe a T. Higgins and bring them back, maybe help the edge rusher that is really good, Trey Hendrickson. I think you're going to have to rework his contract. You want a little bit of money to put towards those kinds of things. You can cut Sam Hubbard. I think it's about $9.5 million that they can save by doing that. And then you go ahead and you draft Mike Green, and you've got the guy that you drafted that hasn't shown too much yet coming into his third year as well. And between the two of them, hopefully we can get some good edge, help opposite of Trey Hendrickson. So that's going to bring us on to this next pick here with the Seattle Seahawks. And for them, for the second year in a row, this is, they still need help along that front 7. We're going to go with Kenneth Grant. Let me know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but with a couple of those edge rushers going early in this case, I wasn't about to go that route. I actually don't think edge rushers as big of a need as getting a D tackle for them is. So maybe I missed something when I made my needs list up. That does happen. I did notice that with 2 teams now, the Los Angeles Rams and the Green Bay Packers. I had a mistake on theirs each. And maybe there's something I haven't seen with Seattle. So always let me know, too. you don't think your team needs that position, I'm willing to read it and investigate. Just try to be a little bit polite with it. Let's bring us on to Tampa Bay, who still needs a little bit of help along that offensive line. It's a very good offensive line, but Armand Menmu, we're going to bring in. Oops, I screwed up. I'm not going to do this in ASMR. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I kind of flubbed the analysis on that one. The idea behind the pick is that almost the entirety of Tampa Bay's offensive line are free agents right now. And in the case of picking Armand Menbu, the team would have been treating him as a guard, but some teams may view him as a tackle. That's a little bit of debatable. Either way, he provides with this team with some more versatility along the offensive line, which is never a bad thing, and he's a very natural athlete, and I believe he would fit really nicely along with Graham Barton and Cody Mock in the center of this offensive line. So that was the main thing. Oh man, did it lose focus on me? Sorry if I was out of focus. Not a big deal, right? All right, that's it. Back to the program. Bye. Let's bring on the Denver Broncos pick here at pick 20. Now, my board's a little bit different than a lot. I think here at wide receiver, very close between Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka, but I actually prefer Emeka Egbuka a little bit. Similar types of wide receivers, and I think the similar type that the Broncos need. So that is the route that I ended up going for the Broncos. Once again, let's invest in areas. Let's make sure areas that we've invested in the past have the best chance to succeed, especially when that is our quarterback. Let's give them all of the weapons that they need to succeed. I think it's very possible that Sean Payton might say, we've already invested in our wide receiver. We've taken a couple of guys, and we saw them pop off late last season, and to rest on that and think that your wide receiver room is set and complete. I really don't think that those are down in and down out guys that you can rely upon, and we want to make sure that we are moving this ball consistently well and just making life as easy on Bo Nix as possible, because he does have a limited ceiling, and we want to foster that and continue to make that ceiling go just a little bit higher each year as he becomes a better quarterback. But in order to do that, we need him to progress and not regress. So Emeka Egbuka can be a down-in, down-out weapon. Could it be a tight end? Sure, it definitely could. But wide receivers are more valuable than tight ends at the end of the day. And I do have Emeka Egbuka ranked higher than the next tight end on the board. So that is the route that we go here for Denver. Bringing on number 21 pick here, Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it's very popular to give them a wide receiver, and Luther Burden sitting right there. The other thing is they did just draft Roman Wilson last year. Are we giving up on that because he wasn't able to play all year? Maybe. That's very possible. I don't know. They know in the building if that's something they're willing to give up on or not. And if not, then I definitely don't think we take Luther Burden here. So instead, let's help our cornerback room. We definitely need help in there. Our second-year cornerback, Joey Porter Jr., didn't even have a good year, and there's nobody opposite of him. So let's get Trey Amos in the building, potentially because we also might have missed with Porter. That has to be a realistic possibility that we are concerned about going into the future a year or two down the road as well for that cornerback room. So Trey Amos, let's invest in that secondary. I think that'd be very important for a team who's obviously got a dominant front seven to top off that. Let's bring us on to the Los Angeles Chargers here. And this one was interesting because I do have Luther Burden ahead of Matthew Golden on my board. To me, there is a lot of crossover between what Luther Burden and Ladd McConkey bring to the table and where we want them to line up. And I just think that they... it's not a perfect marriage, whereas I think Matthew Golden a little bit more comfortable being put out on the perimeter with the weapons that we already have on our team. I think that this makes a lot of sense. Of course, we could go with a tight end, but I really think that that's just not the route I'm going in this draft. So just want to address that. Obviously, that is a possibility, but going wide receiver, we're going to add Matthew Golden. I think that really creates an interesting and fun, unique wide receiver room for the Chargers going forward, with some signs, enough signs from Quentin Johnson that we're happy to have him as our other wide receiver in the room. That's perfectly fine, and I think between the three of them, gosh, you can have some really fun formations, and Matthew Golden can help to unlock the field for everybody else, a little bit of a deep threat for him, and that works, well with Justin Herbert's arm as well. Just every now and then. Nothing, we don't need to do it every play, but Matthew Golden can go deep for you. That's going to bring us on to the Green Bay Packers, and this is where things got really interesting, and this is actually why I'm pushing to get this video out a day, maybe even multiple days earlier than I was planning on getting it out, because this morning I'm working on this, finalizing it with those changes like I talked about, and before the Senior Bowl, I did this. And you may or may not believe me, but just, I'm asking you to give me a little bit of trust here that I'm not lying to you. I originally had the Green Bay Packers going wide receiver Trey Smith? I think it's Trey Smith here, right? Hold up, he's way down on the list. Yeah, Trey Harris, my bad. Trey Harris, I knew that didn't quite feel right. And that would be a surprise, too. I do think that Green Bay could definitely use a wide receiver one truly in this wide receiver room. But just given how the board fell and everything, I'm like, Luther Burden's still out there. It just didn't feel right anymore reaching for that. So I figured let's reach for something else. And my number one need for the Green Bay Packers is center. First of all, the center that they had last year sucks, but he's also a free agent. So they don't have a center right now. They truly don't. And Gray Zabel was somebody who, coming into the Senior Bowl, his measurements were all sorts of short arms, short arms, small hands. Probably not going to work out as a tackle as he's listed here. That was already a thought, a concern. But also when I looked at him and Wyatt Milam, it's like, which one do I think has a better chance of being center? Gray Zabel has a history of playing center, just feels like he's the better center prospect. So that is the route that I went. Zoom forward about an hour, and Gray Zabel is like one of the more talked about prospects from day one at the Senior Bowl. Absolutely had a fantastic day, and basically solidified that he's going to be a center prospect, probably maybe the best center prospect in this class, which is what I was banking on here. So Green Bay Packers take him. Being at pick 23, how the board fell, I think the Packers would like to fall back, but you don't always have a trade partner, and I don't know if I made it clear. This is a no trades. Well, it's going to be clear in the video title. No trades in this, so I didn't have that option anyways, but sometimes you just don't have that option. So we had to pick. We ended up going center there. Gray Zabel. Go Pack Go. That's going to bring us on to the Minnesota Vikings, who are going to take somebody who I think the Green Bay Packers, he fits a lot of what they want in Benjamin Morrison, what the Green Bay Packers would want. The only thing is he's coming off of an injury, and I just find it, maybe a quarterback coming off of injury is better than no cornerback. That argument also would make plenty of sense, but I find it a little bit tough with the fact that injuries are a large part of the reason that the Green Bay Packers are where they're at in their cornerback room and needing help in the cornerback room. To draft a guy who's coming in injured, I just don't think that would make sense. So obviously the medicals would have a lot to do with whether or not Green Bay would be willing to draft Benjamin Morrison. He was an option for them as well here. And in that case, he's available since Packers didn't take him, and I think he fits Minnesota very, very nicely for what they like to do on defense as well. So, they like to have guys with ball skills, get turnovers. Benjamin Morrison did a lot of that in college. That's going to bring us on to Houston at pick 25, and finally, we're going to see Luther Burden go off of the board. He's still available. It's offensive line or wide receiver. I think in the first round here for Houston, almost certainly they could always go defensive line. It's a good defensive line draft, though, so maybe we focus on getting this offense back into shape. Once again, invest in the things that we've invested in and make sure that those investments previously are successful and worth the investment. And this time, we got our quarterback coming off of a little bit of a rough year. So we want to protect him and give him weapons. And we're going to start out by giving him a weapon in Luther Burden. Once again, slot type of wide receiver that will work fine once Tank Dell gets healthy. But Tank Dell is going to be gone, I'm sure, most of or all of next season. I assume all of. So, we need some help in this wide receiver room, and Luther Burden should come in and do that. That's going to bring us on to the Los Angeles Rams. We're going to go with an offensive tackle. Yeah, Josh Simmons is a guy coming in on injury, so I do think he might fall a little bit compared to like how high he's ranked here on this board. And we're going to go with Josh Connerly, somebody who, I mean, he might go higher than Armand Membu in this draft. I just have Armand Membu a little bit higher at this point in time, but they're kind of at a dead heat for me. I don't really have a big preference between which one. Either way, good tackle prospects here. Something that the Los Angeles Rams are going to be in need of is a tackle. And so, assuming that they don't take care of that in free agency, we're going to take one right here. But there's other options too, depending on what they do in free agency with this pick. That's going to bring us on to the Baltimore Ravens, who I think secondary is definitely something that they could look into. Savan? I think it's Savan. I think I'm supposed to ignore that H. Revel, obviously a great prospect. Coming off of an ACL tear, though, I think that probably pushes him out of the first round. That's a little bit hard to draft in the first round. This year, with the talent, maybe you talk yourself into it. That'd be perfectly fine, too. Isaiah Alexander, somebody who I really, really like a lot in this draft. Denzel Burke, I haven't really got delved into that, but possibly a lot of potential there. But nobody else that I think is quite worth it in the first round available at this point. So we're going to look elsewhere, and we're going to go to Josh Simmons. We need help along this offensive line yet again. We need tackles specifically, and this is like the last guy here before we're going to be going into a different tier. So ACL injury, tackle, it's not as devastating as it can be to those positions, those cornerback and wide receiver types of positions. Higher chance that it won't impact once Josh Simmons comes back healthy. Now, things can go wrong with the recovery process, of course, but as long as everything goes well, he should be able to come back and be the same player that he was before. So we're going to rely on that to a certain extent here with Josh Simmons to Baltimore. Getting a guy who could have gone much higher in the draft here at pick 27 never hurts. Going to bring us on to Detroit Lions, and I'm telling you, I was on top of this before it became the popular pick. I don't know if it's going to remain the popular pick or if things will die down, because I really saw this popping off right after Jack Sawyer's big game-winning, I can't remember if it was game-winning, but during the semifinals of the college football playoffs, when he had the strip sack return touchdown play. Big play. I really like Jack Sawyer. I always like these kind of, this type of edge rusher, but opposite here in Detroit, I think he fits what they want in some ways a lot. I wouldn't mind a speed rusher, a Mike Green either here, but I think that Jack Sawyer also very much a good fit. So we're going to go that route for them. I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense to me. It feels right. It's kind of like how last year, the cornerback that they ended up drafting. Sorry, I had to look it up because he didn't really get to play all year because of injuries. Ennis Rackstraw, who was a guy who had some injury concerns coming in. So once again, that's why, you got to be concerned. You got to be careful about taking guys like Benjamin Morrison coming in injured, because you might just not get anything out of that player all year. But anyways, just like Ennis Rackstraw last year felt very comfortable as a Detroit Lions pick, Jack Sawyer, I feel like feels like a Detroit Lion. So bring us on to the Washington Commanders here, pick 29. And you might notice somebody sticking out, because I know a lot of people are really, really high up on Mikael Williams. Michael. I'm not one of those people. I'm quite a bit lower. I totally get it, and I like prospects. And believe me, when those athletics come in, he'll probably be moving up my board a little ways, because he's quite a ways down on it compared to others. I get a lot of it. I just don't love what I see for now, and I'd much rather take him in day 2. But Washington definitely needs some help in this area. The board looking like what it looks like. We're going to draft Michael Williams. I figure at this point, even though it's not who I would take next on my board, it's representative of the fact that some of these teams are going to love Michael Williams. Somebody's going to probably take him day 1. And so in this case, we do have him dropping a little bit, so that represents a little bit of my own feelings, but also still getting taken in the first round at least. So Michael Williams going here to Washington. That's going to bring us on to the Buffalo Bills. Michael Williams will be somebody that, as we get closer to the draft, if it's still looking like he's for sure going to be going top 10, whatever, then, I will change my tune to it in terms of the mock drafts. But until then, I might be, might see him drop a little bit in some of my mocks. As we bring us on to the Buffalo Bills, and there's a guy here that really, really fits the mold in Shamar Stewart of what they want. So that is the route that we're going to go. They like their big edge rushers, and Shamar Stewart is that 6'6". Actually, it's 6'5". It's not 6'6". 6'5". I think this is more like 280, 285 as well. Maybe he's trimmed down a little bit for the NFL Combine or something like that. I'm not sure. But regardless, Shamar Stewart is still a big, big boy and definitely fits their mold. And then we've got the Philadelphia Eagles up next. And I'm in a lot of areas where, I think they would take Shamar Stewart if Shamar Stewart had been available. Maybe they like a Nick Scorton. I'm not so high up on him. I'm not high up on Tyleik Williams. I know I'm not alone on that as well. They really invested in their cornerback the whole entire secondary last year. I don't think that they really need to immediately invest in that this high up in the draft, especially. And there is something that they've spent a lot of quite a bit of resources on over the past year, trying to do something that I thought maybe they would even spend a higher pickup on the draft trying to do last season, and that's in the slot wide receiver type of role. Colston Loveland just gives this offense a weapon that I think can help it to be much more consistent. They have trouble with this passing attack, and it being just consistent because of the weapons that they have and the offenses that they run and how they run it. That's just kind of how it ends up being. And I think having that kind of slot receiver, I think when you see it be the most consistent is when they do get, Dallas Goedert at least going a little bit, when sometimes Devonta Smith comes in and he does play from the slot and he'll run around. But last year, like I said, they invested in the slot a couple of times. Jahan Dotson, they were hoping to come in and help there, and spent quite a decent amount of resources in this draft for that. Think that failed. And in the draft, Aeneas Smith, still a guy that's going to be, a developmental guy. Got him in like the 5th round. I liked him quite a bit, but he's undersized. I mean, there's some to go. He's a special teams kind of guy for now. And, just neither one of them pitched in at all. To the extent that the Philadelphia Eagles have utilized the 2 tight end set, the most out of every team in the entire NFL. And the guy that they were utilizing out of that 2 tight end set a lot, tight end Grant Calcaterra, has not really developed too well either, but they still wanted him on the field over some of those other options. So that's not promising as to where those other options are. And so this gives us something where, we get a bit of that big slot here from Colston Loveland. We get an upgrade to the guy that we were utilizing a lot in Grant Calcaterra, and ultimately our starting tight end, Dallas Goedert, is getting older. He's now 30 years old. He's a fresh 30-year-old. He's still got some years under him, but depending on the development of Colston Loveland, maybe we can move on from him all the quicker, whatever the case. A long-term plan for our tight end position as well. So being the team that they are, not too many holes to be worried about covering up, and this draft being where it's at, I felt Colston Loveland could definitely be the route that Philadelphia will go here. And then Kansas City has, would have loved Josh Simmons to fall just a little bit further. I don't really think there's a left tackle prospect at this point in the draft that would make sense. So much like last year, we're just going to have to do something else. And in this case, we are going to go with helping out the internal of our defense. We're going to go with Derek Harmon. There are other options. I like Omar Norman Locke quite a bit. TJ Sanders, definitely they could like more than Derek Harmon. I end up going Derek Harmon. I think he fills their need very nicely. Don't know who they'll like more, but that is the route that I decided to go. All right, so there you go. There is the complete draft on the screen. So let me know what you hated about it and maybe what you liked about it as well. And I hope you enjoyed it. There will be much more draft content coming out as the season goes along. I am feverishly working to get more and more of this class evaluated, but I do feel comfortable enough in all these guys, I don't have full evaluations done yet, okay? There's still more to go. There's still an entire draft combine to go, and I haven't watched tape on everybody either. For instance, the cornerback position I haven't gotten to at all yet. So there are still things that I will learn about this class. I will change things as we go forward. And we'll gather as much information as we can too, and try and nail this draft somehow, some way. We'll get it right. All right. Very much appreciate you guys. Love you. Take care, and I will see you soon.